This is EDUP, Accelerated Excellence.
Leaders, entrepreneurs, and change agents looking for the opportunity to network and exchange ideas with other trailblazers and to further your brand. The 2.0 conference is for you. Experts from the fields of education, health, internet, marketing, and CXO are welcome to take part in the 2025 conference in Las Vegas, March 4th through 6th. Reserve your space today and receive a 10% discount courtesy of EDUP Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPX E10OFF. That's EDUPX E10OFF. Learn more and register online at www.the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPX E10OFF.
Welcome back to EDUP Accelerated Excellence, a podcast for the advancement of educational effectiveness and equity across both traditional and non-traditional learning experiences and contexts. We have, I always say this, an outstanding guest, but this really is an outstanding guest. I met this young lady on a middle states review. She was our team lead. It was, I believe, probably one of my first reviews, and absolutely wonderful. I felt as though, as a new to the accrediting world, as a site visitor or team member, I felt really cared for. I felt she was very knowledgeable, and she did a good job at bringing all of us together. And we felt like, honestly, at the end of the visit, it felt like we had been to summer camp and we were all in tears, not wanting to leave each other. So will you please introduce yourself for the EDUP Accelerated Excellence community?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for that really glowing and heartfelt introduction. I'm delighted to see you again and to be here. And yeah, that was an amazing visit, but they all are. They're all, as you now know, they're all each unique, but all very, it is a special kind of intense bonding experience to come together with another institution and look at, continuous improvement and excellence. But who am I? My name is Carlota Ocampo. I am the provost at Trinity, Washington University in Washington, D.C. I've been provost for nigh unto 15 years or so now. Prior to that, I was associate provost for accreditation and assessment. Before that, I was an associate dean. I've run the first year experience. I've run professional advising, and I've also been a professor. I was an associate professor tenured in 2003. Yeah, 2003. Wow, when I was 12. Haha, that's a joke. You said young lady. I know I have to wrap this intro up, but I just want to mention that I graduated from Howard University. I have 3 degrees from Howard. And my research portfolio is around the psychophysiology of trauma and oppression and racist incident-based trauma. So I'm very, very concerned about student mental health and about the mental health of our society. And I will stick in here, you can edit this out, but I was at school at Howard the same years as our Vice President, Kamala Harris.
So
me and 11,000 other people, but we were at school the same year together, so.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I have to tell you, I did not realize you're an HBCU graduate.
Yes.
At Howard. That was my second choice. I decided on Morehouse. And I thought Howard was just too far away from home.
Yes, understood. They're both great schools. I mean, you can't be mad at Howard or Morehouse, frankly, for a really excellent education that centers the experiences of students of color and African-American students and Black and Brown students. For I would say overall, mostly the better.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a bit about your work at Trinity, and it seems like you professionally have grown up at that institution. So Trinity College of Washington, D.C. was founded in 1897 by the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur, becoming the nation.
We just say de Namur.
I needed to practice my 2 years of French.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And it becoming the nation's first Catholic liberal arts college for women, But much has changed since then. In 2004, the college became Trinity Washington University. So, what makes Trinity a unique space in higher education? And can you describe the student population?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. When we're sitting around here at senior staff, we refer to Trinity as the diamond encrusted unicorn.
Wow.
Trinity is, first of all, we are, as you say, a historically women's college. We still have that identity. Of course, we take a gender neutral stance towards many of our in our public philosophy. Now, I will say that the College of Arts and Sciences, the traditional undergraduate population, is still mostly people who identify as women.
Right.
We do enroll some men in the graduate and professional programs, the School of Nursing and Health Professions, for example. But, when the sisters founded Trinity, Lothi's, 125 years ago, their idea was to give women access. And that was a wonderful mission because at that time, women could not attend Catholic institutions of higher education because women weren't allowed to enroll. They were gender specific for men. In the 1960s, when many of these schools went co-ed, Trinity, the women that had enrolled at Trinity, were not choosing Trinity. They wanted to go to Georgetown. They wanted to go to Catholic. Suddenly they could access these places. But the Sisters of Notre Dame sat back and said, our mission is still very relevant. And it's relevant for women that, for whatever reason, still don't have access to a higher education. And there are thousands of them right here on our doorstep in Washington, D.C. And they made a very conscious decision to create an environment that would be created with an architecture, an intentional architecture to support the students that Trinity, and I think in a very cutting edge way, because, everybody now is talking about diversity, but Trinity was doing this in the 80s and 90s. And, Trinity was ahead of the curve and very intentionally pivoted towards a population of women and men who are interested in equity, who, were historically excluded from higher ed for a variety of reasons, perhaps other than their gender, but who still need the education, the world-class education that Trinity provides. So Trinity today is one of the, I think maybe 3 women's colleges in the country that is both a predominantly Black PBI and a Hispanic serving HSI institution. And that's why we say we're a unicorn. You just don't find schools like Trinity that serve the population that we serve, very diverse population of Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Latina students who all, come together around the idea that women's colleges produce women leaders, and that institutions that specifically focus on the populations that they serve, mission-driven institutions, are able to produce students that can self-actualize and flourish.
Oh, that's wonderful. So we're going to talk a bit about this. This is a primer. I do want to delve a bit deeper into the context of a women's college, and particularly women's college with Catholic ideals. But Trinity is closing in on its 2020-2025 strategic plan.
Right.
And a plan which I think is quite expansive. And one area of focus is inclusive education for both student experience as well as the professional development of faculty. Can you talk a bit about those initiatives in terms of inclusive education and professional development for faculty?
Absolutely, because you've come you're stepping right into my warehouse, right into my shop. So I would say that my passion is creating curricula where the students that we serve can see themselves centered in the educational experience. Provided with the tools to learn how to create their own knowledge, to critically analyze the world in which they live and all the intersectionality that they experience. This is what I feel like I got when I was at Howard. I was in the Department of Psychology. I have a PhD in neuropsychology. And, so I had 11 straight years of Howard University neuropsychology with a real focus on construction, deconstruction, and reconstruction around the psychology of the Black experience and the psychology of Black and Brown people. Mm-hmm. So, being able to create curricula, learning experiences, pedagogies, retool syllabi, retool the way that courses unfold, particularly with respect to incorporating, undergraduate research and authentic scholarship, into students' experiences with a lot of mentoring and the things that we know that students, from diverse backgrounds really respond to. Right. So constructing that. So that's a theory. That's the 1,000-foot view. So how do we actually do that? Well, here's the thing. You can't do it without faculty. Right. Faculty construct the educational experience. And the faculty have to buy into this is the best thing to do. So there's, there's faculty development. There's also very carefully, employing faculty that, like what I call hiring for mission. When people come to interview for positions here, we're very clear about the expectations. Right. and what a Trinity classroom is going to be like. And just not everything is for everybody. Different people have different, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We choose, we try to choose, just like any institution, we try to choose faculty that are a good fit with Trinity. But then once they get here, we have to give them the tools, to make sure that they can be successful. So I have just a variety of different programs and protocols that are about teaching faculty about how to be excellent in the classroom with student populations, that the student populations that Trinity serves. And frankly, it's along the lines of a kind of universal design for college, because I've always said if you can learn how to teach at Trinity, you can teach anywhere. We really focus on active, engaged pedagogies. Mm-hmm. We focus on small class sizes with mentoring. We focus on training faculty. Let me put it this way. When students, arrive on campus, they're fresh out of high school or wherever, maybe they've been out of school for a while, they're fresh out of wherever they're fresh out of, and they're here on campus, and, they're like, many of our students are first gen. They don't necessarily have models. We know about this whole hidden curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. So that student walks into a classroom. Whoever that faculty member is in front of their class is the institution to the mm-hmm. student. They don't know from adjunct faculty, from assistant professor, from visiting professor, from full professor. They have no idea that those terms are meaningless. That's inside baseball. Right. What they know is that person in front of my class is the institution. And so we take every single faculty member at Trinity, and this includes the adjuncts. Adjuncts deliver a lot of educational product nationally, particularly in the 1 and 200 level classes that are the key classes where students are introduced to college. Adjuncts absolutely need to be included. And we do a variety of different kinds of trainings. The trainings can be labeled as things as simple as managing difficult conversations, recognizing student distress and referring students. So you have to break this down. What you have to do is look at what are the things that our students need, and then break down every single topic to deliver faculty that specific content. We cannot assume, faculty, we've all been to grad school. Most of us not in education. So we all know that all we learned in grad school was our subject and how to do research. Right. We didn't learn how to teach. We didn't learn pedagogy unless we were part of a special program like preparing future faculty, fellowship or something like that. But overall, we're just thrown into the classroom. We have to learn on the fly. Well, that's not really fair. We need to give faculty the tools. Now this is not cheap. Not gonna matter. So we have to identify funding sources. Sometimes that can mean grant writing. One example for us, our science department of all departments, was awarded a couple or $3 million HHMI grant, Howard Hughes Medical Institute grant, to engage in a complete overhaul of the curriculum and program to do research to determine what were the stopping out points for the students that we serve, how can we make the curriculum more accessible, and what kinds of touch points do we need to incorporate in the curriculum to help students through. And this was a years-long project. It involved a complete revision of the chemistry, biochemistry, chemistry, biology, forensic science, environmental science, etc. curricula, so that it was much more flexible than what it was before, without all these prerequisites that stack, but ways for students to move in and out of the material and get just-in-time help. But it also centered around mentoring that was overtly structured into the curriculum. So there are mentoring courses in the curriculum that are for credit, as well as authentic undergraduate research. You know, students learn best when they learn authentically.
Right.
So these principles we've expanded throughout the curriculum. Look, I know you asked me one question. I have not stopped talking, but I can talk for a long time about the different kinds of protocols and projects that we put in place, from revising the curriculum, engaging in mentor moments, having specific training for faculty around growth mindset, around inclusive pedagogy, around active, engaged, experiential learning, so that they really have the tools when they step into a classroom. And faculty need to know that we've got their backs on that.
Well, I think just amazing that you had an research, but evidence-based approach to look at some of the root causes of issues that contribute to the lack of student success. Doesn't mean their students weren't successful, but what I'm hearing is there was a commitment to how do we continually improve ourselves? How do we organize ourselves, and how do we conduct ourselves curricularly and otherwise to absolutely ensure the success of students of a particular student population? So that's wonderful.
I want to say this, okay? Very often you will hear in higher ed a professor say, you know, gosh, half my class failed in organic chemistry. What's
Right.
wrong with those students?
Right.
What I'm here to say is nothing is wrong with those students. Maybe the problem is us. Like, if half the class is failing, isn't it us who are not teaching these students well? Let's turn it back on us and figure out this is not about evaluating a student problem. This is about evaluating a problem of how we are engaging in teaching.
Right.
And I'm going to give you this factoid. Well, before we started Inclusive Excellence, we had maybe 5 science majors that were successfully completing the program. Today, we have near 100.
Oh, that's a turnaround.
I mean, those are metrics that do not lead us astray. Those are very, very clear metrics that tell us that something, and when I say, and you're going to say, oh, well, you know, maybe it's social promotion. Listen, our students, we just had a student get her PhD at Cornell after leaving Trinity. PhD at Cornell in biochemistry after leaving Trinity.
So,
I mean,
Carla,
it's not that
you should know I would not think that was social.
you would not, but people would. Okay, you would not, but that's a thing out there. People think. So I am telling you that not only have we increased the number of scientists in our undergraduate portfolio, we are also producing scientists that now go on into the world to do some of the top things that scientists do. So they're going out, they're getting very high quality internships, they're doing high quality postgraduate degrees, they're working in high quality, institutions where they're doing authentic research and they're really contributing. So I just have to throw that in there, that in addition to more students, we're also having more quality in our outcomes.
And I think that's the whole purpose, right? So, and I would say that I'm not on campus, but I could envision that those type of results produce excitement among the faculty and their renewed commitment to continually reflecting and investigating how do we improve the education experience for our students for their success personally, academically, and professionally.
all boats rise.
Absolutely.
Experts from the fields of education, health, internet, marketing, and CXO are welcome to take part in the 2025 2.0 conference in Las Vegas, March 4th through 6th. Reserve your space today and receive a 10% discount courtesy of EDUP Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE10OFF. That's EDUPXE10OFF. Learn more and register online at www.the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE10OFF.
So now, earlier this year, you contributed to the Chronicle of Higher Education an article on how colleges can support the mental health of students of color. What does such support look like at Trinity? I know you talked about this research project in science, but for students who are suffering mental health issues, what does that look like? How do you support them?
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to first say just broadly that this is based on my own background as a neuropsychologist with a particular, body of interest in psychology of oppression and how that manifests in terms of health and flourishing, right? This is something that's very near and dear to my heart because we are all whole people. We often hear that diversity is good because it's good for society. Quote, DEI is good because it's good for society, better outcomes for society with more diverse viewpoints, and businesses make more money with diversity. DEI is good because every single human being on this planet deserves the right to flourish and self-actualize. Mm-hmm. Period, right? And that's the value that I have. So for every student that comes to Trinity, my main concern is that student be happy, comfortable, challenged, and is able to self-actualize on a trajectory of growth.
Right.
In order to do that, we have to pay attention. Any institution has to pay attention, not just to the student, what they're getting in the classroom and so on and so forth, but also how they're being cared for in their holistic selves. And I'm going to tell you that, the young people are way farther along than, I'm going to say, us old folks. I'll just say that about myself. I'll leave you, out of that. But, when I came through school, nobody was thinking about mental health. In fact, it was kind of the opposite. It's a lot of pacing going on, just generally in higher ed, I'll say, right. as people try to reach their pinnacles. And the idea is if you can stick it out, you'll get this degree. But, no, I felt very cared for at Howard, I have to say. I had some amazing mentors who really scooped me up and, did provide that family sense. And in fact, all these years later, some of those professors that I was in school with back in the 80s are still some of my closest mentors and friends. That's the kind of, I want our students to experience an environment of inclusiveness, of value, of really understanding that they belong here and that we value them and that we want them to know that we care about the whole body. So what does this look like? It looks like a whole bunch of things. I mean, it really looks like transforming campuses to be aware of the fact that mental health is important.
Right.
I'll also mention I'm on the board of the Steve Fund, which is the nation's premier organization devoted to the mental health and emotional well-being of students of color in higher education.
Right.
So, I mean, we all know the amazing intense statistics around mental health issues for students, particularly for Black and Brown students in campuses where they don't see themselves, right? So there's, and others, students who are otherwise othered for a variety of intersectional reasons on particular campuses, right? So we need to really wrap around those students. Now, Trinity, we're a PBI, we're an HSI. We have students from all different, backgrounds, all different kinds of orientations, different abilities, different languages. And, we want to make an environment where they all feel cared for. So we do this a number of ways. Faculty training is one. I mentioned about, making sure that all faculty are not therapists or responders, but right. they can recognize patterns and refer. And we have a software platform where faculty can raise flags confidentially if they're concerned about students. And then those flags go to Center for Student Success Advisors or Health and Wellness or Student Affairs or whoever on campus has the tools and skill set to be able to respond to that particular concern. And it can happen in real time. So some of it is faculty training. Some of it is, again, the inclusive programming, making sure that students understand that they belong here. But some of it is creating a culture where, I'm the provost. My door, unless I'm in a podcast or some kind of meeting, my door is always open.
Right.
Students can make it all the way down that hallway to my doorway, and they can come in and talk to me about a problem or concern that they have. And, the way we describe it is, students will come in and they'll pull up a chair and I'll say, well, tell me about what's going on. I really want to help you work through this problem and see how we can help. And they might start with something about a class. Maybe they need to change the class time. The class time's not working for them. But as we talk, it's like they have these little rolly bags with them with all their emotional things. And as we talk, they start unpacking their rolly bag. And they pull out, I'm taking care of my aging parents. And then, I'm taking care of my brothers and sisters. And then, I got to work because I've got to do this for the family. And then it's their whole backstory, whatever it is. And then it's this other thing. And, before you know it, they've just completely displayed, this very complex set of issues that we then need to help them untangle. People often say, all students need is, it's all financial issues, and all students need is more money. No, money is not a bad thing. Okay, yes, students need money. I'm not saying don't give students money. Please keep giving students money. But on top of that, we need campuses to be trained to center the student experience and to really be sensitive to. Sometimes they do need tough love, but sometimes they don't need tough love. Sometimes they really, really need wraparound services. And those wraparound services have to be culturally relevant and unique. Now, those are some of the unofficial things. We also have, of course, a lot of official programs.
Are you an educational leader or organization seeking innovation or just a new perspective? Then look no further. Accelerated Excellence Consulting is dedicated to offering support to educational leaders and their organizations to meet their full potential for excellence. Services include strategic planning and problem solving, continuous improvement expertise in areas such as assessment and accreditation, and professional development, empowering leaders, individuals, and groups for personal growth for organizational excellence. To learn more, find us online at xeconsulting.org. That's xeconsulting.org. So you mentioned earlier about your work in neuroscience and you're a trained psychologist. So what influenced you to pursue a career in higher education and ultimately to become now a provost?
Oh my goodness, what a great question. So what influenced me? Look, it's all happened on accident. Excuse me for saying everybody.
But is it really an accident? Let me
just tell you, first of all, I started working when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
I did not go to college until I was well into my 20s. I really did not envision myself in the higher ed space for whatever the reasons. And then at some point I kind of felt like, wow, I think if my life is going to be good, I think I need to get some higher education. Mm-hmm. And so I, decided I really didn't apply to anywhere else but Howard. And I was just lucky, I got in. And I was an older student, but I took to it like a duck to water and, realized that, hey, I'm good at this thinking biz. I can do this. And I just really loved it, but I had no goals, honestly. I mean, I just wanted to be something other but I didn't know what that other was.
Right.
And then, I happened into this psychology class, and the professor just really inflamed my thinking because he was talking about things that I always knew and felt, but didn't know that anyone else knew or felt it or talked about it out loud.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I think I want to do this psych thing, but it was never like the psychology I was interested in was never like the clinical, psych. It was always research about human experience and how people experience the world. And so I just kind of Velcroed myself to some of these wonderful mentors who I knew for, again, years and years. I mean, we're still in each other's lives. And they just, their brilliance just enriched me so much that I just wanted to do what they did. Honestly, like I was like, you know what, this whole college teaching thing, what a great gig. And I can talk, I love to talk, and I love these ideas, and I love doing research about things that I have ideas about. And now I know how to do it. And, this is what I really want to do. So I only ever wanted to be a college professor. And that, again, started while I was at school. I went all the way through. I started at Howard. I want to say it was maybe 1985 or 86. And then I went all the way through bachelor's, master's, and PhD, all at Howard in a straight line. I immediately came to Trinity and got the job at Trinity, like maybe a week after I got my PhD. And part of what attracted me about Trinity was that it also had a mission, a different mission than Howard, but it was a mission institution. I had been teaching at Howard. I've taught at most schools in this area in the DMV while I was a graduate student, and really loved it. But I want to branch out a little bit. Anyway, came over here, got the job, got into the classroom, immediately fell flat on my face and failed. I think my first class, we were talking earlier, I think my first class, I was assigned, I was a brand new professor, assistant professor, right out of school, had not, so they assigned me a 4-credit 8 a.m. class, the 4-credit 8 a.m. class.
Trial by fire.
Right. Trial by fire, exactly. But no one else wanted to teach that already had however many students and whatever. And so, I taught the way that I had taught at Howard and at other schools in the DMV, and about, I think maybe at least a third of my students got Fs. And I remember sitting with students, in my class, and you'd be like, I know you can do this. Like, why aren't you doing it? And then I really reflected, and I was like, I have to change. I have to change the way that I'm teaching. The way that I learned how to teach in my kind of regular education is not the kind of teaching that these students are going to respond to. And I immediately started learning about how to do different kinds of pedagogies. And everything started to turn around. And, my students became successful, and I started working with students in my lab as undergraduates. I have a number of students who have publications as undergraduates from doing authentic research. I figured out what made me learn.
Right.
So I changed, for example, one of my favorite things to do in any class is put students into groups and assign each of them a chapter. And their project is towards the end of the class, they have to completely cover the material in that chapter for the rest of the class. And that is the part of the class that students remember most, is the part that they learned how to teach.
Well, it can be a bit nerve-wracking too, but rewarding.
Yes, but these are pedagogies that really work.
Right.
And so anyway, how did I get to be an administrator? Very reluctantly, because I was totally happy. All I ever wanted to do, I was just happy as a little clam in the ocean. All I ever wanted to do was teach. I was loving it. I was loving my students. I was having the same kind of mentor relationship with them that I had with my folks. It was just this whole big kind of wonderful, happy family thing. But, the thing is that when you do that, people notice.
Mm-hmm.
And, people came to me and were like, you'd be really good to run the first year experience. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm happy in my classroom. But then I was like, you know what? I love a challenge. Next thing was, you'd be very good at running professional advising. Okay. Next thing was associate dean. And after a while, I got more into administration and less into teaching until finally I stopped teaching in 2013, but I still do work on independent studies with students. And in fact, I have 3 students who are going to be working with me this fall on a research project.
Yeah,
right. So it's like, that's what it's about, and now in terms of, like being at Trinity and being able to have this position, what is so amazing about it is, at the end of the day, there are basic things, right, for accreditation. But a lot of policies that we have are just holdover policies from like long, long ago. Like somebody created that policy, but if it's not in students' best interest now, maybe we need to change it. Maybe we need to do something different. Maybe we need to think about this differently. So as a team here, the administrative team, we've engaged in a project as part of the strategic plan called Removing Small Barriers to Student Success. And that is like identifying those pressure points where students are likely to not be able to succeed, not because of their ability, but because of something about the educational experience, something about the way that we've constructed the structure of the institution is holding them up, and figuring out how to change that. And that is just the most exciting thing to do. Like I get up every morning. I don't think I've gotten up once in 30 years and said, I don't want to go to work.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful to be in a place that invigorates you and rejuvenates you and energizes you. I mean, so there's like the energizing, but then the re-up, so that every day, if you felt a little down, just thinking about the importance and the impact that I can have helps
right.
you
Yeah.
to focus.
Not everything is 100% success. Like we might try something and it doesn't have the result that we intended. The nice thing about being at a kind of a school like Trinity, private institution, I mean, obviously we do have stakeholders that we are accountable to, but I think we do have a lot of flexibility to kind of turn on a dime. If something isn't working, let's do something else.
Right.
Like let's figure, and as long as we stay student centered and put the student at the center of our moral compass, we will get to a place eventually where we need to be. Now, there are many, many different types of institutions. Not all are teaching institutions. Not all are intended to be student-centered. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for people who want to be at a place like this, where, the mission is to advance the students, the population that we serve, historically excluded students, who may not always look academically like they're going to be the stars of the basketball team, to have them come in and be able to, excel and really not just excel academically, but as I said before, also figure out a little bit about who they are in this world that we live in that doesn't always give them the space to do that, and find a little bit of flourishing and self-actualization. Like what could be better?
So in both of these, what I'm going to say your trajectory. And so both of these sort of stories about Howard and Trinity, you've mentioned the word mission multiple times, which is quite interesting because, many institutions have missions, and folks can sometimes or maybe not be able to articulate them quickly and easily. But does it ring true at the fiber of what an organization does, stands for, and how it organizes its work, and how those on campus internalize what the mission is? So Trinity is a special place in higher education as both a college dedicated to both the education of women and Catholic ideals.
Right.
So can you talk a bit about that I would say the synergy between the two on campus, and how do you hold true to that mission for all these years?
Yes. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, big shout out to the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur. Have you heard of the Nuns on the Bus?
No, I have not.
So, I mean, this is kind of probably a Catholic inside baseball thing, but there are nuns who are very, there are different groups of nuns that are very, very committed to social justice.
Right.
So when we talk about Catholic institutions, they can take many, many different flavors, many different postures toward the extent to which they, in the ways that they express the Catholic mission.
Right.
And, the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur and Trinity's, the sisters here who are still on the board, who still teach here in campus ministry, still have a very, very important impact on the trajectory of this institution. They are all about social justice, and they remind us of that every single day. I would say that most students at Trinity today are not Catholic. And we have students from many, many, many different backgrounds. In fact, we have, many, many Protestant students, a lot of students, Baptist students. We have students who are Muslim. We have a Muslim prayer room upstairs. We have next to a washing space so that Muslims can, do their prayers appropriately. We have, Buddhist, Hindu, you name it. We have, and our campus ministry is very focused on being interfaith for that reason. I would say that most of the people who teach here are probably not Catholic. So you're going to be like, well, what makes you Catholic? What makes us Catholic is the fact that we are about that social justice mission of the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur. We call it the charism of the sisters. And they push us towards excellence. They push us towards serving the undocumented students. They push us towards serving students who are historically excluded from higher education pathways. They were the ones who, back in the day when Trinity was, sort of questioning its mission as a women's institution, they were the ones who said, hey, you can still serve women. Look at all these women who need an education right here on your doorstep. Why don't you serve them? So what makes us Catholic is, yes, I mean, we are a Catholic institution. What makes us Catholic is the fact that we create a community that's centered on social justice.
Mm-hmm.
And that means if someone's hungry, you give them food. If they're naked, you give them clothes. If they need some place to live, you give them shelter. If they need knowledge, you provide knowledge. That's the core of what Catholicism is truly about.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm smiling. Folks can't see it, but I'm actually smiling at this point. So, in short, how would you, as a provost, define educational effectiveness for Trinity Washington University for academic affairs? And you've talked about the research that your faculty in the science department or science division have engaged in. You talk about Wellness Wednesdays, but on the academic side, what is educational effectiveness at Trinity?
Educational effectiveness is when I can ask a student to come in here and sit right over here at my table, and I can ask her to tell me about what her favorite class was this year, what thesis she wrote about that class, and explain to me her thesis and how she supported it. And she can sit right there and just talk that through with me with a passion. Educational excellence is when students can engage in internships, experiential learning, practica, and immediately be employed in their field of choice when they graduate. And then go on, perhaps, to higher and higher levels in their careers and or choose graduate school and go on and construct knowledge and contribute to the knowledge base. It's really, educational effectiveness is about the outcomes. Right. And, again, the way that we get there is by creating an educational experience that engages, inflames, and passions students, that makes them want to continue to learn. Not every student is going to want to continue to learn about everything. But if I can help students have the experience that I had, which was walking into a class and going, wow, I love what this guy is saying, and then want to study it and then want to go on and create their own knowledge base around it, then that to me is educational effectiveness. Effectiveness is about being able to construct educational experiences that produce outcomes in which students can intellectually flourish and thrive.
And educational equity, what does that look like and even feel like at Trinity?
Educational equity means that every single student who we admit to Trinity gets, I'm not going to say exactly the same opportunities, because equity means that some people need different opportunities that are tailored to what their specific needs are.
Right.
But that every single student who enrolls here receives what she needs in the way that she needs it, so that she can master, the 4 years of educational experience and go on to do whatever it is that she wants to do in her life, regardless of how she presents, regardless of ability, regardless of all the things that we have to disregard. But I kind of react to how we always define, things like DEI as some kind of a deficit model. This is actually not about the package a student comes in. This is about the fact that every single student who appears here is like a living flame, right? Who deserves oxygen, and whose presence on this earth is something that needs to be nurtured. And when we do that, when we're able to create happy, healthy students who are getting what they need, then we'll have a better society. But also that student will be happier and healthier, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah,
so I hope I've described equity, because it doesn't necessarily mean everybody gets the same treatment.
Well, that this is not a test, and I do believe that in each context, how we think about those words, effectiveness and equity, and we're talking about in the educational space, will change based on the needs. So what equity might look like today at Trinity may not look the same tomorrow. But I like this image that you just painted about every student being a flame. And, some come dimly lit.
Right.
And some come burning very bright. And then you can see that light dimming at some point for whatever reason. But I think the idea is, how do you continue to nurture that flame with the appropriate elements and oxygen, so to speak, so that folks can thrive and flourish. So what can the EDUP Accelerated Excellence community expect from Trinity Washington University in the future, and how might those who are thinking about being students at Trinity or are really compelled by the work that you're doing, particularly supporting women's education under Catholic ideals, but also others who come to study with you, how might they also engage with the university?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what people can expect from Trinity is for us to continue to be sort of, I would say, cutting edge in terms of inclusive excellence, campus transformation, shifting paradigms, really responding to the diverse student populations, and that's all the diversities, including generational change, right? So there's, institutions just have to learn how to be flexible in order to stay. In order to stay, I'll just say it like that. But I think we're going to continue to produce some really great leaders. Nancy Pelosi graduated from Trinity.
She did.
So we're looking for our next congresswomen and men, and women and men that are influential in a variety of different spheres. I mean, we have a more recent graduate who's the CEO of Waymo Cars. She's doing like AI cars. I mean, we have students. We have a student who's she's a political reporter right now, Beatrice Peterson. She's reporting on all the things that are going on politically right now, which, that's a whole thing.
Right.
I don't know. I just think that we're going to continue to produce really amazing, great leaders who are women of color, women from historically excluded backgrounds, as I said before, who are reaching great heights and doing great things in their own lives. And people can engage with us by, we do a lot of different kinds of programming. Some of our programs are fully online in the graduate space. Follow President McGuire's blog. I should give a shout out to President McGuire, our president. One of the reasons why Trinity's been able to do what we've done is because of the vision of our president, Pat McGuire. She's really, really an amazing leader in higher ed. And I want to give her many, many, many props for being the architect of much of what, we flesh it out, but, many of these ideas are created in community, but around the moral vision that Pat has set for the institution, along with the sisters. And Pat has a wonderful blog where she writes about a lot of different social justice issues. And she's always, straight true to the North Star with her perspective. So if you really want to follow a very influential voice on higher ed, I would say to find Pat's blog on our website. And come to our website and take a look around. You'll love it.
So there you've got to, there you hear it, folks. You've got to, if nothing else, check out the Trinity website and the blog of the president there at Trinity University.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for our Madam Provost, Carlota Ocampo? And how can folks engage with some of the work that you're developing?
Well, thank you so much. Again, I hope to just continue to be able to be excellent and contribute to this great, project of making higher ed, accessible and excellent. Access and excellence are not mutually exclusive. I do have a book project. We don't have a title yet. The book is going to be about transforming campuses to promote mental health and emotional well-being, particularly of students of color and of intersectional identities. So just stay tuned with our website again, and that'll be coming out in about a year.
And you're publishing with which publisher?
APA.
So with APA,
American Psychological Association.
American Psychological Association, at some point, if you can't, since we don't have a title yet, you can Google Carlota Ocampo and find the book once it comes out.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've said before, I'm good at so many things, but I'm terrible at titles. So maybe we'll have to do a raffle and raffle off books to someone who can come up with a great title. I know what the book is, though, and its purpose. And its purpose is about this whole project of transforming higher education that I've just been speaking on. And thank you so much.
I have an idea for that one. So,
good.
Given all the wonderful engagement you have on campus, it might be an interesting idea to present parts of the book on campus and allow your students and our faculty to weigh in on what the title might be.
That would be fun.
I'm sure it would be.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for this opportunity to learn with and from you on the EDUP Accelerated Excellence podcast.
And I want to thank you so much for having me on and take a few minutes to talk about what I love to best. And it's so great to see you again. And I'm sure our paths will cross.
Oh, most definitely they will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for engaging with the EDUP Accelerated Excellence community. You can find this episode and others on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Music. And if you like this episode, please don't forget to follow us and share within your network.